Do you remember when grocery shopping meant actually leaving the house? Walking through aisles, checking dates on milk cartons, trying not to forget the one thing you actually came for. It was never glamorous, no, but it was part of a ritual of small decisions, little frustrations, and the occasional guilty pleasure when you slid a little something extra into your cart. Now, there was friction, but that type of friction, it's kind of grounding. It reminds us that living, it takes effort. Today, those rituals have been outsourced. You tap on Instacart or Uber Eats, and the world bends to your convenience. Groceries, they appear magically at your door. Meals arrive already cooked. Subscription services like HelloFresh and Good Food don't just deliver ingredients, they plan your meals for you. And apps like DoorDash, well, they even remove the decision fatigue. Whatever you crave, it's there in under an hour. The very act of stepping out the door has become optional.
Are you Tony's stank?
Okay, so on paper, yes, this is progress. Who wouldn't want to save time and energy? But what do we lose when we remove the friction of living? Because convenience, it isn't neutral and it's not natural. So it comes with hidden costs, and they don't really show up on your credit card statement. Wally nailed this critique a long time ago, way before delivery apps hit the mainstream. Humanity had reached peak convenience. Food, comfort, and entertainment all automated. People floated around on hover chairs, sipping liquid meals while screens kept them pacified. Yes, yeah, okay. So it was pretty absurd, but it was also a little chilling because it didn't feel that far-fetched. Now, what made that satire kind of sting was how recognizable it was. The humans in WALL-E, they weren't villains. They were just us, with fewer reasons to stand up, fewer reasons to move, and fewer reasons to go outside, it seems. In other words, they were the logical endpoint of convenience culture. We laugh because the image is exaggerated, but we also recognize the trajectory. When your dinner comes in a bag and your entertainment comes in a feed, how different are we really? The funny part is that Wally imagined this to be happening way in the future, centuries away, but the stats are actually suggesting we are moving in that direction much faster. According to Statista from 2025, more than 161 million Americans, they use food delivery apps. Now that's nearly half the US population. The global food delivery market was worth about $221 billion in 2024, and it continues to grow. That's not just a trend, that's an industry reshaping how humans, well, how we interact with food.
Marge, I'd like to be alone with the sandwich for a moment.
But convenience, it doesn't just change wallets, it changes bodies. A National Library of Medicine study from 2022 found that individuals who rely heavily on delivery services, they showed 30% more sedentary behavior than those who shop in person. That's kind of not shocking when you think about it though. Grocery shopping alone, it adds an average of 1,500 to 2,000 extra steps per week. Those little walks, the weight of the bags, the stairs up to your apartment, it all adds up. Remove that, and you're left sitting, scrolling, and waiting. So the ripple effect extends beyond movement. The NIH reports that 35% of US adults have vitamin D deficiency, largely due to reduced sun exposure. Grocery runs, errands, and even the annoyance of walking to your car can get you outside. Lose those and you lose sunlight, fresh air, and the incidental benefits of just being out in the world and touching some grass.
Yay! Grass!
In WALL-E, humans didn't just get lazy. They physically atrophied. Muscles, they were weakening, bones shrank, balance was lost. While that level of decline is animated and hyperbole, but doctors are already seeing precursors in our current reality. Sedentary lifestyles, they contribute to higher risks of obesity, cardiovascular disease, and type 2 diabetes. And what's sneaky about app-driven convenience is that it feels harmless. You're not choosing to be inactive, you're just ordering groceries instead of carrying them. But those skip movements compound, slowly hollowing out the body's resilience. Even psychologically, there's a cost. Researchers talk about friction not just in a mechanical sense, but in a resilience-building sense as well. Waiting in line, carrying heavy bags, bumping into people in crowded aisles, yes, they are annoyances, but there are also many exercises in patience, adaptability, and social tolerance.
I hate your face so much.
When you automate them away, you also remove the daily microdoses of effort that make humans more flexible. You end up less practiced at dealing with frustration because you don't really encounter it anymore. Okay, now I have to admit that I have fallen into this trap myself. Last winter, I ordered about a week's worth of groceries through Instacart, and it was incredibly cold outside, so I felt pretty vindicated. The sidewalks, they were all icy, and avoiding it all felt pretty incredible. It was amazing. My bags, they all magically appeared at my door, perfectly sorted, receipt tucked neatly in. For a moment, it did feel like magic. And then I realized 3 days had passed and I hadn't actually gone outside. Not even once.
You disgust me.
My world had shrunk to 4 walls and a glowing screen. I hadn't talked to a cashier, hadn't felt fresh air, hadn't noticed the way the snow piled differently on each block. My life was running smoothly, yes, but only inside a pocket reality. I mean, it basically is these curated bubbles of technology that we build around ourselves. They're efficient, they're comfortable, and they're terribly small. It's very tempting to think that we're saving time with these apps. But what do we do with that saved time? Where more often than not, it just gets spent on the same screens that encourage the shortcut in the first place. Convenience begets more convenience until going outside feels like an interruption rather than a normal part of the day. And here is the irony. The very inconveniences we're eliminating are often the ones that keep us healthy and grounded. Carrying bags may be annoying, but it keeps muscles active. Standing in line, yeah, it feels like a waste of time, but it puts you among people, overhearing conversations, noticing little human quirks. These aren't obstacles. They're life. And just like how delivery apps took the hassle out of food, social apps are kind of doing the same with human connection. Platforms like Discord, WhatsApp, and Reddit, they make it possible to stay social without ever really leaving your couch. You don't have to navigate awkward pauses, read any kind of body language, or risk embarrassment. Conversations are typed out, edited, and filtered, and it's interaction without the bumps and stumbles. And that's where things start to get interesting, because if frictionless food makes us physically softer, then frictionless socializing is making us emotionally softer. And nowhere is that clearer than in the world of dating.
So I decided to try online dating.
Dating has always been awkward. You meet someone, you stumble through a small talk, you misread signals, you risk rejection. It's messy at best, but God, it's real. That friction, the racing heartbeat, the nervous laughter, the possibility of things going wrong, is exactly what makes romance human. But apps like Tinder, Bumble, Hinge promise to smooth all that out. You don't have to approach a stranger at a coffee shop or even have to muster up the courage to ask someone out in person. You swipe, a profile appears. If you're both interested, you chat. If not, you swipe again. Rejection is quiet. It's private. It's painless. The friction, gone. And people are buying in. Pew Research from 2023 found that 3 in 10 US adults have used a dating app. And among young adults ages 18 to 29, that number jumps to nearly 50%. Globally, the dating app market is projected to hit about $10 billion by 2030. It's not a fringe thing anymore, guys. It's the new norm. But here is the catch. While these apps reduce the fear of rejection, they also flatten the learning curve of real-world interaction. Every awkward pause is avoided online. It's one less opportunity to build resilience. And every ghosted chat, well, it's a nice, neat exit strategy that replaces the uncomfortable work of saying, "This just isn't working out." No film captures this better than Spike Jonze's Her. Theodore, the lonely protagonist, falls in love with his AI assistant, Samantha. She listens, she understands, she never interrupts. It's intimacy without interruption, companionship without conflict. And it's seductive because who wouldn't want a partner that perfectly anticipates your needs? But here's the problem. Relationships, they're supposed to be inconvenient. They require compromise, miscommunication, patience. Samantha doesn't challenge Theodore. She accommodates him. The relationship feels deep, but really it's super shallow because it lacks the rough edges that force people to grow. And when you look at the rise of dating apps, it's hard not to see echoes of Her. I mean, we're not dating AIs, at least not yet.
Where are all the football stars? And where are the biochemists? They're trapped trapped in the soft, vice-like grip of robot lips.
But we are chasing the same ideal: connection without friction. A swipe-based marketplace of curated profiles, it creates the illusion of endless choice while stripping away the vulnerability that real intimacy demands. Alex Garland's Ex Machina takes the idea further. In it, Ava, the humanoid AI, doesn't just interact with Caleb, she manipulates him by anticipating his emotions and reactions. She becomes absolutely irresistible, not because she is real, but because she's predictive. She knows what he wants to hear before he even knows it himself. That's exactly what algorithms in dating apps are designed to do. Tinder doesn't just show you random people, it learns your swiping habits, your preferences, your biases. It predicts who you'll be attracted to and serves them up. In some cases, the app knows your type better than you do. God, this is seductive because it feels efficient. But efficiency in romance is kind of a paradox. By skipping over the friction of trial and error, you're skipping the very process by which people really discover not just who they love, but who they themselves are. And the numbers prove it. Studies show that while dating apps increase the number of potential partners, they also increase choice overload, a psychological state where too many options make people less satisfied with their decisions. Interestingly, according to a 2022 Stanford study, relationships formed online are actually less likely to result in marriage compared to those formed offline. And the users themselves, well, they report frustration. In a Pew survey, 45% of people who use dating apps describe the overall experience as more negative than positive. So while the apps reduce surface level friction, they introduce new problems. Instead of rejection anxiety, we get ghosted culture. Instead of awkward silences, we get endless small talk that never really leaves the app. Instead of learning resilience, we learn disposability. Okay, so I remember chatting with someone on a dating app. The conversation, it flowed great. Okay, it was witty, clever, like a perfect script. But it was perfect because I had time to edit everything I was saying, right? Every joke, it was tested. Every reply, polished. When we finally met in person, oof, the rhythm was kind of gone. You know, real life, it doesn't give you a backspace button. And that gap between the curated self online and the messier self in person is exactly what frictionless dating kind of erodes. And this craving for smoothness doesn't stop at dating apps. Once you've grown used to avoiding rejection with a swipe, why not extend that to other parts of life? Hey, if we can skip out on grocery stores, why not skip on social awkwardness? If we can skip out on social awkwardness, why not skip the frustrations of living with another person? That's why the idea of a smart home becomes pretty alluring, I guess. The promise is simple: a house that adapts to you, anticipates you, removes every inconvenience. Lights adjust automatically, thermostats, they predict your comfort. AI assistants remind you of anniversaries. But what happens when you no longer have to negotiate? You no longer have to adjust to adapt. When everything around you already knows what you want, that's when life starts looking a little less like growth and more like a curated playlist of your own desires. Because friction, it doesn't just slow us down, it sharpens us. The awkward first dates, the disagreements, the messy compromises of shared living, those are the things that teach us patience, empathy, and resilience. Without them, we're left with the illusion of connection, not the real thing. Okay, so far we've looked at how frictionless consumption affects our bodies and how frictionless dating shapes our emotions. But what about the spaces we live in? You know, what happens when our homes, our cities, even our devices start anticipating our needs before we even voice them? So that's the promise of the smart life. A life where your thermostat knows your ideal temperature, your fridge knows when you're out of milk, and your lights dim themselves right as you're about to fall asleep. On the surface, yeah, okay, it sounds pretty idyllic. It even sounds kind of magical, really. But in reality, It's a slow reshaping of what it means to be human. So Wall-E gave us a hauntingly simple metaphor. Humans in hover chairs, sipping endless sodas, staring at glowing screens, while robots cater to their every need. At first glance, yeah, it felt pretty cartoonish, a playful exaggeration. But the further we moved into a frictionless lifestyle, the less exaggerated it looks. The movie wasn't just about environmental collapse. It was about the atrophy of effort. When even the act of standing up becomes optional, you stop exercising not just your muscles, but your will. That's the real risk of smart living, the erosion of the effort of self. Consider how much your devices already make decisions for you. You know, Netflix, it queues up your next episode before you've even processed the last one. Spotify curates your playlist to match your mood. Google predicts your search before you finish typing. In the smart home, this definitely goes further. Alexa doesn't just respond to your commands, it starts anticipating them. Smart fridges, they suggest recipes based on what's inside. Doorbells with AI facial recognition decide whether someone is a guest or a stranger. The goal doesn't seem to be just convenience. It's removing all decision making. And that's where the danger lies, because every small decision we outsource is one less opportunity to exercise judgment, patience, or even negotiation. The friction disappears, but so does the skill. Satire has always been a way to peer into our future. You know, in Futurama, you see it in small, absurd details. A house that argues with you about rent, robots designed to handle every mundane task, humans so reliant on tech that even opening a jar feels impossible.
Please select mode of death, quick and painless, or slow and horrible.
Yeah, I'd like to place a collect call.
You have selected slow and horrible.
Good choice.
You are now dead.
Okay, yeah, it is actually incredibly funny because it's exaggerated, but satire works because it's not entirely untrue. When was the last time you remembered a phone number without your contact list, or navigated a city without GPS? These are tiny frictions we've already surrendered. A laugh track today, a lived reality tomorrow. The frictionless dream doesn't really stop at the front door. Entire cities are now being designed around automation. Let's take Sungdo, South Korea, one of the first fully planned smart cities. Trash is collected via underground tubes, sensors monitor traffic and air quality in real time, streetlights adapt to pedestrian flow. It's efficiency at scale, an entire urban environment engineered to remove inconvenience. But there is a hidden cost: surveillance. Every convenience requires data, and every data point requires trust. In a frictionless city, privacy becomes the friction, and when privacy itself is treated as an inconvenience, you start losing not just agency, but freedom. Now, what makes smart living so tempting is the illusion of intimacy. A house that knows you, feels like a partner. You know, it warms your coffee mug before you wake up. It cues your favorite playlist after work, even lowers the blinds when the sun gets too harsh. Yet it feels incredibly caring, but it isn't caring, it's prediction. Just like an ex machina, Ava manipulated Caleb by anticipating his emotions. Your smart home, it manipulates you by anticipating your desires. The line between assistance and dependence starts to become razor thin. And that brings us back to friction. Discomfort is what teaches us adaptability. When you argue over the thermostat with a roommate, you learn compromise. When you forget to buy groceries, you learn planning. When you misplace your keys, you learn responsibility. Smart living removes these little inconveniences, but it also removes the lessons that they carry along with them. What looks like progress actually is cognitive outsourcing, the slow outsourcing of memory, problem solving, and resilience. Alright, so far this is an opinion, so let's substantiate this with some statistics. According to Statista from 2024, the global smart home market is projected to hit $222 billion by 2028. More than 60 million US households already have a smart device, from voice assistants to smart thermostats. Studies do show that people using automation tools like GPS lose natural navigation skills. A university study has found that heavy GPS users show reduced activity in the hippocampus. That's the part of the brain that's responsible for spatial memory. So that one's a little alarming. The trade-off is absolutely clear: more convenience, less capacity. There's enough gray hairs on this chin to show you that I lived in a time where it was expected of me to know all the numbers of the people that mattered to me. Friends, family, even my own house line, believe it or not. But now I can't recall a single one beyond my own, and even that seems kind of like a challenge some days. My phone remembers all of that for me, and yes, at first, this feels like liberation. One less thing to have to worry about, one less thing to clutter my brain. But then you realize when your phone dies or you lose service, you're stranded. The friction you once trained for is now a full-blown obstacle. What was once muscle memory is now outsourced memory. Here is the irony. The more seamless our lives become, the more fragile they get. When everything works perfectly, we don't really notice. But when the system fails, like a server crash, a blackout, a glitch, we are absolutely left helpless. That there is the paradox of frictionless living. It feels empowering, but it makes us more dependent. We trade resilience for convenience, adaptability for predictability. Now, taken together, these trends raise an uncomfortable but necessary question. What do we lose when we lose friction? Because friction isn't an inconvenience, it's the resistance that sharpens us. It's the awkward pauses in a conversation that teaches empathy. The small struggle of remembering a number that strengthens memory. It's the effort of cooking a new meal or navigating a new place that builds confidence and adaptability. Friction shapes resilience, and resilience is what makes us human. So it seems that the danger of a frictionless world isn't just laziness or atrophy, it's dependence. If we let our tools anticipate everything, we risk forgetting how to anticipate anything ourselves. What begins as liberation can end in confinement, a reality so comfortable it leaves no room for growth. So maybe the lesson is this. Instead of trying to erase every bump, every delay, every inconvenience, we need to learn how to value them. To see friction not as an enemy, but as the quiet tutor that keeps us capable and adaptable, and at the very core of it, human. If this did make you rethink any movies or TV shows, or maybe even rethink your own conveniences, hit that subscribe button, leave a comment, and join us as we keep undoing comics together. Until next time, my name is Shell. Stay kind, stay curious. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you next time. I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to be deleting a hell of a lot of apps on my phone now. Tickety-boo, tickety-boo. Tickety-higgity. Boo. Hibbity hibbity. Higgity pibbity bibbity ribbity. I don't know tongue twisters.